and welcome to Mugello in sun-soaked Tuscany, here for the second round of the Preventing International Endurance Series. We've already been to Dubai. We've still got to go to Silverstone, Zandvoort, Paul Ricard, Barcelona and Brno, but it's all about round two. It's all about qualifying. The cars are already waiting for the red light to go. It's a single session, 45 minutes. Who's the fastest? Who's going to be in pole in just a couple of hours' time here in Mugello? To talk us through the session, it's Joe Bradley. But first, Johnny Palmer.
Thank you, Nick. A wonderful introduction, as we've become used to for the 24hourseries.com. Thank you for joining us on radiolemans.com, whether it be via our online stream on the internet or indeed on Motors TV as well, because we're looking forward to not only qualifying over the next hour pretty much, but also 4 hours, the first 4 hours of the 12 hours of Mugello for 2016. One of these great events where we are going to do a 12-hour race, so once round the clock, but it's split between Friday and Saturday, 4 hours today and 8 hours tomorrow. So from 9:30 till 5:30 tomorrow afternoon, a 8-hour slog. And we were talking a little bit earlier on, Joe Bradley, who joins me to my left, that the 4 hours of the race later on today is kind of all about staying on that lead lap. It's more complex than that, but the teams are approaching it in that, a little conservatively, make sure you're still in the mix once 4 hours is reached later on tonight.
We can really start disappearing somewhere if we start looking at the intricacies and the complexity of how you're going to run the first of these 4 hours. But in simple terms, Johnny, if you are not on that lead lap going into tomorrow, what we talked about is you can build up a lead of a minute and a half at the front of this field. But when we then go into parc fermé conditions and then when we restart tomorrow, you're going to start side by side. So that minute and a half is irrelevant, really. Yeah. So it's just about being on the lead lap and the race proper. We spoke to Stewie Hall, who's in the number 30 Ram Racing Mercedes. And he was saying something about, and it was funny how he said this. He said, because once we get into tomorrow, that's when it really starts and we really go for it. And I felt like saying, over 8 hours, we've got, effectively, this afternoon we've got a European Le Mans Series race, and then tomorrow we've got 2 European Le Mans Series races, or dissected however way you want to do that with, whether it be a quarter of Le Mans or a third, whatever, kind of thing.
There are various ways of measuring it.
There is, and
but 8 hours
time to do that
is a long time. I mean, that's a work day shift, isn't it? If you worked in a retail shop, you'd go to work for 8 hours, and you'd have a lunch break, which the guys don't have tomorrow.
That's right.
We can break for dinner this evening, which is all very civilised. Some people say, in the true essence of endurance racing, this isn't a proper 12-hour race, but it is one you've got to think about. Nevertheless, it's still a 12-hour race, and you've got to be in it. We were talking about this again a little earlier on, about being in the right position at your 4 hours. You cross the line, the checkered flag is shown, that might be 4 hours and 2 minutes or whatever, but directly then you go into parc fermé conditions. The car cannot be touched, and it all depends on how much fuel you've got in the car, because sometimes, I remember from last year, some teams decided to virtually run dry, so they only had maybe 5 laps still in the tank to restart Saturday morning. And that might benefit you because you start at the front of the grid for Saturday morning, but you've got to pit almost immediately, whereas the thinking teams perhaps think, well, let's get some fuel in, let's fill up. It does mean we maybe drop off the lead lap, but we're in the box seat for tomorrow morning.
But then let's just get really complicated, because then how does that cycle through towards the end of the 8 hours tomorrow? And then, however way you look at it, what you have to be on that pit wall is very flexible and reactive to what you have in front of you, because we've got code 60s, which are going to extend that fuel window. And I think, I'm standing here next to you, Johnny. I'm not on a pit wall.
Would you like to be?
Yeah. I mean, I have done. I've done endurance racing before from both sides of the, behind the wheel and on the pit wall. And whenever you have the opportunity of coming into the pits for under code 60 or whatever, and I know there's complex rules about pit coming in and out of the pits under code 60s, but it's basically you just every time you get the opportunity to fuel, to extend that pit window. Now let's add into the complexity of driver times. we'll come to that later, eh? We've got a qualifying session that's just started, Johnny. We've got a green flag at pit out, and we've already got cars on the track. Nick Damon is down in the pit lane. He'll be grabbing the action because we have got a 45-minute multi-class qualifying session. We haven't split the classes, which has kind of become the norm in all forms of racing which we cover, but we haven't today. So we are going to see a very crowded racetrack there. And Nick, tensions beginning to rise. You haven't had much time to really think about it. A 15-minute gap between qualifying proper.
There's an awful lot of work going on here. Remarkably, it's not just cleaning. Just a second ago, underneath me went the fluorescent orange and black Mercedes SLS of the secret superstar who's running at this event. His first circuit race since the accident which very unfortunately ended his Formula One career. The man many tipped as a future world champion, and that's Robert Kubica. And could this be the start of the next phase of his motor racing career, running with a roof after a few years in rallying? But he's taken away in that car in the 777, and he has to be, given this morning's practice time, pretty much the favourite for pole.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't exactly been sitting with his feet up in the break between circuit racing and today, since his last circuit racing. He has been doing some pretty high-end, high-quality rallying, and maintaining being behind the wheel of something, albeit on all sorts of road surfaces. But I'm sure this is where his passion is, and this is where his heart is. And I, for one, hope to see Robert Kubica participating in many, many more endurance races. No question.
So let's give you a little bit of background on the series, which is now FIA approved, by the way. It's all under the umbrella of the 24hourseries.com. But this is round 2 of the International Endurance Series. 4 GT3 cars, 4 GT4 cars. There are classes for specials. So we've got what's called a GC automobile car. Looks a little bit like a BMW 5 Series from the outside, but actually nothing like it on the innards, because it's just the skin of a car draped over a tubular space frame chassis. On board currently with car number 963, the GTR Grasser Racing team. They did a full season of Blancpain last year in the new for 2015 Lamborghini Huracan. Well, the GT3 car made its debut within Creventic Racing at Dubai during the 24 hours. That was the second weekend of January and the first round of the 2016 International Endurance Series. And it's great to see 2 different types of Lamborghini Huracan here this weekend. Both the Super Trofeo version and the GT3 version being found a home within Creventic Racing. So the International Endurance Series, it is point scoring, by the way, within each class. And A6 Pro and Am are the GT3 cars. So we'll talk about Class A6 quite a lot, because that's where we expect the opposition time to come from. And Robert Kubica is certainly one of the favourites to be the best over the next 41 and a bit minutes. 208.350 is the fastest time so far, by the way, offered by the Hoffa Racing Mercedes SLS. And that's one of the older Mercedes. There are AMG GTs here this weekend, an example from Ram Racing, and I think one other as well. But it is one of the older SLS cars with the gull-wing doors that is fastest. Although, as I say that, the Grasser Lamborghini Huracan, the one we were on board with a moment or two ago, goes quickest now. And that's the first proper flying lap, if you like, a 151.792. Immediately bettered, though, by car number 14, driven by Joe Osborne for Optimum Motorsport. Joe Osborne is here with Flick Haig and Ryan Ratcliffe, the Welshman, and Ryan and Joe regulars within the British GT Championship. The Audi R8 LMS went pretty well at Dubai at the start of the year, and Joe Osborne, it's fair to say, the quickest of those 3 drivers, putting in a decent time there, a 151.619. We now go on board with car 58, which is from Sportec Motorsport, coming onto the home straight. And one thing you don't get evidence of immediately looking at a track plan of this place, whether it be in the programme this weekend or indeed from the air, you can't immediately tell the amount of elevation change at this place. It's tucked in, but crammed in between the mountainous area of Tuscany. We're in a fantastic spot of Italy here, not very far away from Florence and just up the road from the village we're staying in, Scarparia. but it is tight and twisty, this circuit. Principally a bike track, I think it's fair to say. It's a lot of it is like momentum, or about momentum, a little bit like Donington Park, I think, here, because if you get it wrong through one of the corners, particularly at the first part of this lap, that can throw you well and truly out for the whole sector. And it is about just biding your time, making sure you hit your clipping points. This section here is interesting, braking, turning in and heading downhill. It's quite steep there over the tunnel that gets you into the circuit, and this is the lowest point of the track now, down at Arabieta Turn 1. There are two parts of Arabieta. It's a double right-hander, a little bit like the Imola in and out corner, but that's a double left-hander. This is the double right-hander that then starts the climb up to corner Scarperini itself. That's as close to the village as you can get. Palacio is turn 11, which is a left-hander, and then we can see turn 12, which is Corenchao. We can see that from our commentary booth, just behind a decent-sized grandstand, and that part of the track, Joe, is significantly higher than where we are.
Yes, and you mentioned tight and twisty, Johnny, but when you say tight and twisty, don't get in your head, Monza chicane tight and twisty. This has got a lovely flow to it, and it's tight and twisty, but only in relative terms to the rest of the track. It's got a beautiful flow to it, and it's all about, you were quite right, it's all about momentum, and it's all about the section of track you're on leading into the next bit, and you're always thinking ahead and compromising perhaps the corner that you're in to get the corner that you're about to take perfect, because it leads on to the next section, if that makes sense, and you've got to compromise the entry or exit to, you mentioned there Scaperia into Pelagio. Scaperia is going to be compromised for an exit out of Pelagio, which is then going to take you into the sweeping downhill right-hand 180-degree turn, and it's not. Yes, it's a hairpin, but it's not a tight turn, park and turn kind of hairpin. It's a momentum hairpin. Beautiful, beautiful circuit. And what setting do we have here? What a great place to have a motor race. The beautiful rolling hills of the Firenze countryside. Beautiful place.
It reminds me of tracks like, if you've played Formula One Sims, for example, the first bit of Suzuka, after you've got arcs around that right-hander, you've got this swing left, right, and if you miss your apex at one of those, it throws you out for the next sequence of corners. That first bit of Kota, for example, once you've gone through the left-hand hairpin, it's then right, left, and it's about being in the right place, not just for the corner you're going through, but for the next three. And if you get it wrong through Luco, which is turn 2 here, that can ruin the first sector time.
And ruin your lap.
Very long straight here, by the way. That's really your opportunity to let the horses play out. But otherwise, there aren't many opportunities to really put your foot down. Here's Nick Damon down in the pit lane.
I was just going to ask you, have you got a timing screen yet?
We have got a timing screen.
Oh, that's all right. And I just thought I'd better give you an update, but you don't need it.
You still can, Nick, if you want to.
Well, because I'm only repeating what you know, which Robert Kubica is the fastest.
Perhaps no surprise about the name at the top of the charts. Robert Kubica, the pole for MP Sports, is quickest in the treble 7 car, a 1:48.853. And Kubica goes through again, by the way, a lot slower, 6 seconds adrift. So are they deciding to really give it some on one lap and then ease off a little bit, maybe allow the tyres to cool off a bit before pushing on for the next one? I'm not sure how the Hankooks deal with single lap sprint times. They perform well over the long stints that will be needed for the 4 hours later on today and then the 8 hours tomorrow, which culminate or go together to make the 12 hours of Mugello, powered by Hankook. Every car in the field on Hankook rubber, we'll remind you. Sorry, Nick, go ahead.
I'd say lots of cars down here aren't trying to qualify at the moment, so they're taking the advantage of the 45-minute session and deciding not to bother. Like, for example, I've just walked into past one garage and there's 5 cars not doing anything of the 6 which would be in there. So they've taken a much more structured view given this extra amount of time they've got. The other thing is the on.
Just losing Nick Damon a little bit there, so hopefully that can be sorted out by heading back into the area for the radio mic.
I certainly believe, Johnny, that this is going to be the longest.
Oh, hello.
Of
I think because the cameraman the cameraman was changing his battery, and then I cut off in my prime. If you just look over here, you see that these are cars not doing anything. And next door there's even more. I'm about to say the Buxton Ginon car just slightly up the pit lane. That is the number, look, I'm being all clipboardy. This is the number 8. That is in pieces, and I think unlikely to qualify, but it'll just start at the back. It's got 12 hours to get through. So very much more relaxed atmosphere here at the qualifying session than those frenetic 20-minute ones we've been used to in the split sessions in previous races.
I wouldn't, you know what, Nick? I'm sure they're not as relaxed as they may be making out. They've had a very, very busy week, and today is kind of unprecedented, you know, with the events that we normally cover. For instance, we've had a practice session followed by a 15-minute break. By the time you turn around and break in and out a couple of times, that's it over, and we're straight into qualifying. We're then going to have, what is it, an hour or 2 hours before race start? If that. No, it's going to be an hour, isn't it? Yeah, it's going to be an hour and a quarter or something, or less than that, before we have to grid the cars for the start of the race. So it is really absolutely bang, bang, bang. And the serious runners, who we are seeing qualifying out there. Yes, we always have this deliberation as to just how important qualifying is in a 12-hour motor race. But when you see how tight it is at the front of the grid, every second counts, and you want to be at the front of this field so that you're not in amongst the gaggle of cars, especially when we're considering mixed class racing. You want to be out in free air and relatively open spaces at the start of this race, so you don't encounter any difficulties with contact, etc.
Qualifying finishes at 11:45 local time. There is then a break, and the preparation for the start of the Hankook 12 Hours in Mugello for 2016 commences at kind of 1 o'clock. The pit lane exit is closed at 1:30. So qualifying ends at 11:45, call that 11:50, and then your pit lane exit closes at 1:30. The car therefore must be out and on the grid in readiness for a 2 o'clock start. So yeah, it's about an hour and a half you get, if that. And
which is no time at all.
Very quick. Well, indeed, because we've already talked about these cars. If some of the teams may well have opted for a qualifying setup, particularly if it's a GT3 car, like that one is from V8 Racing, the number 18 Mercedes, in its striking black, blue, orange and green livery, principally a black car, but with the blue, orange and green flashes down the body length. And it's, I'm pleased to say, one of our onboard cameras for this weekend as well. So heading into Casanova corner, followed by Cervelli, and then the Arrabbietta double right-handers. And a turn in there for the number 18 car, which didn't quite stick. That Duncan Heisman at the wheel.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Heisman having to, washing the car out a little bit, or it washed out on him, I should say. Front tyres not quite biting on that front engine, but rear-wheel drive car.
And we're seeing something here on our screens, Johnny, in car. We're still in car with Duncan Heisman in the number 18 Mercedes, but what we're seeing now is Duncan's lap being completely obliterated by slower class of cars in front of him. And there's a Lamborghini Huracan.
Just not look happy on its feet.
I think that car's got damaged the way that car was skewing around. It might look like its suspension was a little bit awry. He's now behind a Carrera Cup car, a 991 class car, who stays very, very wide indeed, but then comes back and clips the apex for a classic line through that 180-degree turn. Now we'll see the difference in performance, and Duncan Heisman is not going to show us that difference in performance because he's going to come into the pits. Now here's where we may see, and the camera cuts away, we may see just how tight a turn that is into the fueling station. Remember that we do not do refueling outside the pit garages here in the Creventic series. We go to a fueling station, which is effectively just like a service station anywhere in the world where you would buy and take on fuel for your own road car and pull into the fuel station, which is just in an area just to put in, and it's off the beaten track. It's out of the controlled environment. The fueling equipment that is used on these cars during the fuel stops is exactly like you would use on your road car. It's a fuel pump, a fuel thing with a giving you the literage what you're using. Sorry, Nick?
You don't get any club car points, though.
No, I think you do. I do think there's purple cards down there. I don't know who that is. Other reward points are available.
But it's not like the old school way of fueling in, say, the 50s when you'd go to a garage and a guy would do it for you. There'd be an attendant. You do have to have one of your team members down there. Don't you?
I was about to say, Johnny, you don't actually have to get out the car.
Hang on.
No.
And then refuel.
But what I mean
It's
is
not the 50s. One of my first jobs was petrol pump attendant.
Was it?
Yes, I did a summer working at a petrol station.
You're old, Nick. You're really old. You're much
Mostly
older than
pilfering the chocolates, if I'm honest, which I still feel bad about.
But what I mean is
83 that have been.
there is potential to get that wrong because there are specific limits.
Yeah, you
about
get caught nicking the chocolates. It's a nightmare.
specific limits about how much you can put in the fuel tank. And by the way, a lot of these cars carry a tank that's 120 litres, but the rules say you can't put 120 litres in the car at a stop. Exactly. You can start the race with 120 litres, but that might be the only time in the whole of the 12 hours you've got 120 litres in there, because when you come to refuel, depending on what class you're in and what sort of subclass you're, because sometimes within A6AM, not here this weekend, but in Dubai, A6AM's actually split across 2 further classes, and that might mean that you can put 90 litres in or say 110 litres in, but it is one of your team members that has to be down there to do that. Sometimes you get cars coming in at the wrong time and there's nobody at the pump to fill the car up, and what you can't do is get out, like you say, you can't get out and do it yourself, and you'll be just stuck there like a wally.
Well, what the teams are doing, Johnny, is they are stationing team personnel down there
all the time
throughout the race.
I hope there's an ice cream van down there or something to keep you entertained in between.
They've got, well, you know what, it's beautiful weather out there, and I'm sure Nick will attest to that. We've got hot sunshine really warming up out there. You've got guys down there in camping chairs who's basically, they're going to sit there. Now,
They must have to be in radio contact, though.
They are in radio contact.
And
they're
that's
all wearing
reliant on
headsets.
radios working.
But you haven't got the situation where you know your car is coming in, or you're directing your car to come in, or your driver's telling you you're coming in, and then you have someone blast down there and sprint down there. There's somebody, the sensing, and I think that's a sensible approach.
And I heard stories after Dubai, mentioning no names, certain teams come in and the cars would come in and there was nobody there to fill the car up.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that was a 20. I was about to say, it's not going to be so bad with 4 hours today and 8 hours tomorrow. Can you imagine pulling in there and your team personnel is having a snooze? You haven't got a horn on these race cars. You know, toot, fill us up, mate.
He's flat out in the armchair. Yeah. No, but you're right. I mean, that's the advantage of running a race between 2 and 6 in the afternoon, and then 9:30 in the morning tomorrow through to 5:30. You should have all your team members away during all of that, theoretically.
They've had a pretty heavy week. You know, we were testing yesterday. Were they testing on Wednesday? I think they were. So, they've been, dismantling these cars. There's the car that's on the provisional pole position.
Getting a great paint job
moment
for MP Sports, and Robert Kubica has brought that car in, but it holds provisional pole from one of the Renault twin brothers. I ain't sure whether that's Ralph or Alfred, because the timing screen in our booth just says Renault, but the 911 numbered car, which is the HB Herberth Motorsport Porsche, that's interesting. It's a Porsche. It's not, or it's listed as a Porsche on the screen. It's not the Lamborghini Huracan that they ran at Dubai and had to practically rebuild in Dubai because of a fire that they suffered earlier on in the week. But Renault has put in a good time. Also in the pit lane, by the way, but it's a 1:48.885, which is 0.2 off Kubica's time. That's the number 55 Massive Motorsport Aston Martin. It's another GT3 spec Vantage. Was run in the European Le Mans Series last year, or at least Massive Motorsport had a presence in the European Le Mans Series last year. Not sure whether it's exactly the same chassis. They've had a revamp of the paint job, and the all-Danish squad, I think, make their debut at a Creventic race. There are some big names, though, within the Massive Motorsport squad. As I say, all Danes. Kasper Elgaard, Christian Poulsen, they're regulars in the World Endurance Championship. Nikolai Sylvestre and Roland Poulsen, who I presume is Christian's brother. Not sure. Or cousin or distant relative. I should have checked that. But it's a GT3 spec car, 6-litre engine. And again, it looks very, very smart. I'm impressed with how all of these cars have been turned out.
I mean, some of these teams and cars, it's their first race of the season, remember. And there are some teams here, for instance, the MP Sports car wasn't that right.
Yeah.
Was that there?
I think so,
Certainly wasn't there with Robert Kubica.
no, I don't think it was actually. I think that's a new car.
There's a car that was at Dubai. That's the number 34 Calculation Audi R8. Just looking down the time screens to see where that car was. I'm not sure if he is on our screens. Great sound effects coming from the pit lane. They're very.
I'm doing them all myself, you know.
Are you changing wheels and
It's
tyres?
just me. I'm like that guy off Police Academy, just making the noise into the microphone.
Well, it's very effective.
Thank you.
It gives the illusion that someone's changing wheels and tyres down there.
By the way, if I'm sounding slightly odd, it's because there's just the wrong delay in hearing myself back in my ears. It's about a quarter of a second, and I'm completely tripping over my brain at the moment.
Have you tried taking one ear of the headphones off?
That wasn't like that earlier, Nick.
No, it's because TV's coming. It's fine. We'll sort it out at the break.
All right, okay. Still heading this qualifying session and on the provisional pole position at the moment is still Robert Kubica in the number 777 MP Sports Mercedes. That time of 1 minute 48.683, still standing. He's done 5 laps in total. Not sure what lap time came on, but it was very early on in the session. And only 2/10 behind them is the number 911 numbered Picote Porsche. And their time on at 48.885, like I say, just 2/10 off that. Then we've got a further just under 3/10 of a second behind them, forming the first of the cars on the second row of the grid is car 30, Stuart Hall in the Ram Racing Mercedes on a 1 minute 49.160. And rounding off the second row is the 333 numbered 333 V8 Racing Renault RS01. And that car having posted 1 minute 49.4, putting itself a further just hundredths of a second between third and fourth place there. Then we've got the first of the Hofer Racing Mercedes in 5th place, car number 10. And that is Christian Frankenhope at the wheel of that car with 1 minute 49.7. And then the Optimum Motorsport, Joe Osborne in car 14, that is. And that's the Audi R8 of the Optimum Motorsport team, and that coming in 6th. They're all in the year 6 class. It's the year 6 class, Johnny, that we expect to be at the front of this field in the year 6 class, taking up the first 13 spots on this grid so far. The first non-A6 class runner is down in 14th place, and that is the number 59 Porsche. And that drops down to 15th place. A couple of A6 cars put into the front of the field. No change at the front. As a little flicker of the timing screen goes off. But the first of our 991 class runners, the Porsche runners, the GT3 Poland car, car 59. Opiola is the driver at the front of that field. That is Bartosz Opiola from Poland. And second in the 991 class is a car just behind them in 16th place overall. Absolutely nothing in it in the 991 class, as you would expect. 59 as opposed to 1 minute 54.023, and the number 86 Porsche, the Tsunami RT team, with Ledugar at the wheel of that car with 1 minute 54.083. So a very, very tight Porsche field for us there. Looking further down, first of our SPX runners, and the SPX runner down in 19th.
It's the 24hourseries.com on Motors TV and RadioLeMans.com. Johnny Palmer, Joe Bradley and Nick Damon here in Mugello in the heart of Tuscany for the second round of the International Endurance Series. It's a 12-hour race, but we're not quite into the race. This is qualifying, and unusually, although this might be the way that the Creventic organised series is going from this point on, it is a combined session, unlike the previous times when we've had it's split up between effectively two different or two divisions of classes. So you get the more touring car type spec cars in one part of qualifying for 20 minutes, and then you get the quicker performance cars, the GT3 machines and the 991 Porsches, in their own qualifying session afterwards. In fact, this is all lumped in together for 45 minutes, and that adds yet another variable to this difficult to judge qualifying session and difficult to judge race, as the Ram Racing AMG GT has come to a halt in an unusual spot. That's not the penalty box, that is pit in, it looks like.
Yeah, that's definitely pit in, and those cones denote pushing the cars across to the left to ensure that everyone's able to take that 180-degree turn into the fuel station.
Yeah.
That, for me, could well be the number 30 Ram Racing car out of fuel. Now, they're going to optimise their qualifying run. They're currently in third place. Stewie Hall is at the wheel of that car.
Yeah, Stewie Hall at the wheel. I wonder whether they've run it dry, though. Perhaps they've run it dry. Qualifying for the second round of the International Endurance Series on Motors TV and RadioLeMans.com, and we're looking at the Ram Racing Mercedes AMG GT3. Remember, this is a brand new chassis for 2016. It ran in contention in Dubai for the 24 hours during the second weekend of January. We've not yet reached the race. This is still a qualifying session, and we are just 18 minutes away from the end of it. And Joe Bradley and myself, Johnny Palmer, just trying to work out why the 30 car has crawled to a halt on the pit lane entry road. Were they trying to work out how close to the fuel margin that they could run it, and they've literally run it out of fuel? It might be part of the plan, of course.
I think that is very likely. They've been running a very low fuel load. Remember, we're in qualifying. You need to optimise the car, and the more fuel you carry, the more weight you're carrying.
Yep.
And weight means you're going to have to, brake that weight, accelerate that weight. So the lighter the fuel load, it's not rocket science. It's race car science. Nick?
It's broken.
It's
not
broken,
out of fuel.
right.
I have shaky heads. What's going on? It's definitely not out of fuel, but it's not working, and they don't know why at the moment.
Yeah, you know what, Johnny? I would have been surprised for the Ram guys to not know just how far they could stretch that car. Nick, I suppose,
but
could you ask...
In Dubai, there were cars running out of fuel in Dubai.
I know.
And if your measurements aren't right,
that's right.
It does pay you sometimes to use one of these sessions to run it out. To find out how much fuel it takes to get it to be totally dry. Sorry, Joe.
Are we right, Nick, in our speculation that they are running a low fuel load in qualifying? Perhaps you could ask the Ram guys that. I'm not saying that, I'm not disbelieving that they've got a problem.
Come over and talk to us.
Splendid.
There's a selection of questions coming from above, from alien-formed sources. First thing is obviously just to confirm, it's not run out of fuel, has it?
No, not a fuel issue. Unfortunately, I just grabbed the radio there to listen in, and I heard metal on metal and oil pressure. Doesn't bode well, but it's quite common for the oil pressure to throw itself up on these GT3 cars when the RPM's low. But it's rolling back up the pit lane towards us now. Fingers crossed it's not anything terminal. Otherwise, that's our weekend over already.
So there's no chance of changing an SLS engine in 2 hours then?
I think it's a 12-hour job they book it for. It's going to be a little tight for 2 o'clock.
Well, yeah, they might charge you for 12 hours,
there
but
is that. Yeah, there is that, yeah. We're going to try whatever it is. It might be something simple. We don't know yet. As always, I'm only the driver. I've got limited information. So as soon as the car gets back, I'll try and not get in the way, but find out what's going on.
Tom, thank you very much. Cheers.
That is terrible news for the Ram car. I mean, they're at the sharp end, as you would expect. They currently, they've just dropped down to fourth. Rory Butcher, a little bit of British interest there, putting the MGC Ferrari up into third. But let's get back to that Ram racing car. I was saying this just earlier, Johnny. Today is such a packed programme, preceding a very long motor race. We've had testing the previous 2 days here, Wednesday, Thursday. This morning alone, you've had a week's running in a practice session, and now we're into qualifying. We're going to have an hour and a bit, and then we're going to be gridding up for a 12-hour motor race. What you do not need, what you cannot soak up, is any kind of issue, I think is what we said. Now, issues come in all shapes and sizes. They come in the shape of big gravel traps that your car can end up in, but they also come in the shape of mechanical maladies, and it's, you know, you can clean a car up and you can check it over after, a driver's messed up and put it into a gravel trap, but what you can't do is do an engine change in an hour and a bit.
Clearly, and it's relying on a little bit of luck, I suppose, or not having bad luck hit you, and that is an awful lot of bad luck to be hitting the Ram Racing squad. Remember, there was a problem as well for the Black Falcon AMG GT, new for 2016, as indeed all the AMGs are. That happened at Dubai, and it was so interesting that Black Falcon had done something like a 36-hour test, or certainly a 30-hour test, and run fault-free. You put it into a race, and it's almost as if the car knows that it matters, and says, hang on a minute, I've got a bit of stage fright here, and throws a wobbler. They couldn't get it to half distance. And Ram Racing had problems as well, although they did lead the Dubai 24 hours. I really hope that the British squad at least managed to start this race, and we will tell you a little bit more just as soon as we know. Kubica's back out on track, by the way, in the Mercedes, so the treble 7 car could be set to improve, just nearing the end of this outlap now. In fact, Kubica goes over the line to complete that. The Renault-driven Porsche is second fastest, 2/10 shy of Kubica's time. Rory Butcher, as Joe mentions, is up to third position in the Audi Ferrari here this weekend, the F458. There's no 488 here, but there is a 458. The tried and tested prancing horse. It's a little long in the tooth now, but still looks great, I think. And Stewie Hall holding on to fourth position, despite there being rather a large black cloud hovering above Ram Racing's Mercedes. Rolfin Eichen or Markin Eichen, not sure which, in the number 963 GT Grasser Lamborghini is fifth fastest. And Eichen's done a time of 149.423, and Rory Butcher goes quickest with a 148.260. He's found 4/10 of a second over Kubica's time. So Rory Butcher, not very used to a Ferrari 458 from memory. I know he's done an awful lot of Porsche racing. He's done some historic racing north of the border in the UK as well. He is a Scot and has put in many a lap around Knock Hill Circuit, some connections with the Knock Hill venue, I believe, and as in one of his relatives owns the place. We were trying to work out this morning.
I think it's his father.
Yeah, could well be. But Rory Butcher did many seasons in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB at both Pro-Am 1 and Pro level, and has recently been in the British GT Championship with people like Liam Griffin and Ahmed in the motor-based squad, or the Oman Racing team as it's become known because of Ahmed's sponsorship backing. Christian Engelhardt in the GRT Grasser Lamborghini now, so the 963 car has had a change of driver. Let's see what Engelhardt can do. Max or Luke Brahms in the V8 Racing Treble 3 car. Now that's the Renault RS01, not strictly a GT3 car per se, because it's not had road-going counterparts produced. You have to come up with 1,000 road-going cars to make it officially a GT3 car. It's either 500 or 1,000. I'm trying to remember.
It depends on who you are.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, there's this dispensation for small volume manufacturers.
Right.
And I think on some you have to produce like 10 road cars for every race car. But I'm sure right now that John Hindhoff is tearing his hair out because he knows exactly the correct answer over the Sebring.
Of course he does. But I do know that Cameron Glickenhaus hasn't produced any road-going cars. Nevertheless, his car, which is catchily named something like an SCG 003, and a few more numbers and letters. There are two of those here. I mean, they look epic. They look like LMP3 cars, but they are in Class A6 this weekend. So technically mixing it with the GT3 cars. Two of those Glickenhaus designed machines or funded machines. And there's also a couple of Renault RS01s, which have come straight from the Renault Sport Trophy, which replaced the Renault Megane Trophy at the end of 2014. We've had one season now of Renault Sport Trophy. It's a one-make series, effectively, and they're like silhouette cars as well. But even those have been found a home here by Creventic, a couple of Renault RS01s, and one of those is sixth, with either Luke or Max Brahms driving that for V8 Racing.
Yeah, that's hung on to that sixth place for some time now.
the other racing car, which is the Mercedes, the black with the body stripes of green, orange and white. That Mercedes has been in the pits, in fact still is in the pits. Duncan Iceman was wringing the neck of that a little earlier on, but it's now taking a portion of this qualifying session out. We're into the last 10 minutes, so anyone who wants pole position, put your hands up now and put in your offering, because Kubica, I reckon, has got a bit more time to find yet, Nick Damon. Half a second he trails Rory Butcher. Yeah, I'm just down with the Butcher Ferrari. Interestingly, I was quite put me off. I was going to ask you, has he got a penalty? Because he's got number 22 illuminated in his... and I've just told him he's still connected to his car as he got out. Because he's got number 22 on the side, but I realise that's because he actually hasn't gone past start-finish again to get a reset on the number on the side, which I'll get Sebastian to look at it. Look, that number there says 22, but they're number 1. With the Ferrari. Yeah. So I can talk to him now, but then if he isn't on pole, I'll have to do something else. What do you think? Should we talk to him now? Yes, he's got the car. He's out the car. He's familiar to Ferraris. They're obviously happy with that time, because much embracing taking place in front of you, Nick. Yeah, there will be. A huge amount of affection for Scots. Amazing. Rory, fantastic. That was a bit of a surprise to all of us. Surprise to you to be leading at the moment?
No, I think we knew we had the pace to be on the front row. Whether we could beat Kubica, I wasn't sure, but on the second fast lap, I managed to get a clean run, no traffic, and only one car. And I knew as I was coming out the final corner it was going to be a good lap, and it's a great feeling. The guys have worked so hard. We're a very small team, but we've got a fantastic car, and all credit to the MGC Racing team. There's a bit of a conversation going on in the booth about how much experience you've actually got in Ferraris. You're known more as a Porsche guy. Well, actually, this last year I competed in the final 2 rounds of the ELMS, European Le Mans Series, in a Ferrari 458. We got a podium at Paul Ricard, and then at Estoril we led the race, but the car broke down. So I'm really enjoying the Ferraris at the moment, and it looks this year I'm going to be more in Ferraris than I am in any other car. Give us a bit of an idea about this team, new to Creventic to us, but straight on pole. Where's it come from? Who's put it together? So this team is owned by a chap called Whit Gamsky from London. He's got a real passion for Ferraris. He's raced them for years. He's taken a little sabbatical, and now he's come back with this beautiful car. And we're just a small team where we enjoy our racing, and I enjoy racing for them. Brilliant. Thanks indeed, and hopefully you're still in pole in 10 minutes' time. Thanks a lot. I was there at those European Le Mans Series races. I'd totally forgotten that Rory had stepped in to the J&W Motorsport. That's right. Fold. That's right. I was trying to get that in just before Nick went in there, just so that we would sound knowledgeable. This is all a learning process. He is a Porsche guy, though. You think of Rory Butcher and you think of Aston Carrera Martin Cup. More recently. Yeah, but and you do think of him in Carrera Cup or Scottish Formula Ford, actually, for me. Yeah. There's way less than 10 minutes. There's actually 6.5 minutes to go with... still out on track, Robert Kubica in the 777 numbered Mercedes, MP Sports Mercedes, still chasing that time. He's got 4/10 to pick up to get anywhere near that pole position, and have we got a red flag, Johnny? No, it's code 60, and if you haven't been with us for previous coverage of the 24hourseries.com, let me explain what code 60 is. It's effectively like a virtual safety car whereby all the cars on the circuit have to circulate at 60 kilometres per hour, and that means that during the race the gaps between the cars should be retained. So if you've got a 30-second lead over second place car, once you go into a caution, you should theoretically have that coming out the other side of the caution, unlike a safety car in the old days when of course everything was bunched up, and the sort of armchair viewer might argue that you got a better race because of that, but it was sort of a little bit unfair. Unfair, yes. What's the word I'm trying to look for? Just you're kind of making a race that maybe wasn't there in the first place. It's a little bit stagecrafted, perhaps. Yeah, there are some race series who rely on that to make their races, aren't there? Yeah. And there are competition cautions in parts of the world. Yeah. Yellow flags for debris that nobody else can see, and that spices the race up and gives you a good finish, but then you might end up with a result that's not true to the rest of the
12 hours that was run prior to it.
I think one of the major benefits to Code 60 over putting a safety car out is you put a safety car out, it has to gather the field up.
Yeah.
That might take 2, maybe 3 laps, depending on the circuit. And then when you're ready to bring the safety car in, you then might have to have wave rounds. I know the series use wave rounds and stuff. Once you've gathered that safety car up, then you can, sort out the mess that you're clearing up. That'll take another 3, 4, potentially. Here we have an example of just recovering an errant Porsche that's come to a halt on the track, and that, you've got to make sure that if we were to deploy a safety car, the field would be bunched up behind the safety car. Then you would have the safety workers, the marshals, and the recovery truck come onto the track. That wouldn't have been done in the 30 seconds it took to do this now.
Because as soon as you go code 60, bang, you're at 60 Ks.
Yeah, and we can start doing that.
And then it's a safe environment, theoretically, for marshals to go out onto track. And, of course, before things like code 60, which, by the way, was invented in Dutch supercars, I think. So it came from Holland and has been extrapolated then to, well, even Le Mans now. You have slow zones at Le Mans. It's not technically a code 60, but because
it is effectively by a different name, isn't it?
Yes.
Nope.
No, Nick, you're live.
No, could you turn me off? I need to speak to TV.
Of course I can. Let's lose Nick Damon for a moment or two. But yeah, at Le Mans, because it is such a long track, 8.5 miles worth, then you can afford to just have a period of the race held under yellow flags. But I mean, this is purely to get a safe environment for the marshals. And of course, sometimes when we didn't have code 60, a yellow flag zone wouldn't do the job.
No.
Because some drivers ignore that.
Yeah, we've discussed that over many a length. Now, what this code 60 might do, Johnny, is bring this provisional grid to be the grid. And right now, with only 3 minutes remaining in this session, I can't see there being enough time to get rid of that Porsche. To get rid of that Porsche, we have Nick back available in the pits.
And
Nick,
Kubica's just come in, so looks like they think it's all over as well.
Yeah, I think it is, Nick. We've got 2.5 minutes now. It's took me 30 seconds to say what I was about to say, but I think we've pretty much got our grid formed. Rory Butcher.
That preemptive celebration down that MJC then, did they know something that we didn't? Because it was a pole time, even though you had 9 minutes still left on the clock, it looks like after the recovery of that Porsche, there ain't going to be enough time to put in another quick lap. Still got 2 minutes on the clock, but an out lap's going to take you 2 minutes.
Yeah, we're virtually a 2 minute lap here. I think let's wait a few more seconds before we call it then. Rory Butcher, who is showing that car is.
Once we get to 1:48 on the clock at the top of the screen,
yeah, we're pretty much done. Yeah,
because the time to beat is 1:48.2, and we're still under code 60, and there'll be a little bit of shaking of heads downstairs, particularly down at MP Sports, I would imagine, with Kubica. He was out on track. We go green now.
The last part of the
We're going to go green flag running, but we have to be in a supersonic car to get round in a minute and a half.
Depends where you are, Johnny.
No, it doesn't, because
it
you
doesn't
will have done the first bit of the lap at code 60,
right.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And
no, it does depend where you are.
Go on, how are you going to beat 148?
As long as you get up to speed, you can do a whole new lap.
Yeah, that's right. If you're at
halfway down, you've got half a lap to do.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
At full speed. And then you get a new fresh
So if you're coming through the final corner now, yes, you're right. Beg your pardon. So yes, if you start a lap now, but it will literally have to be a one-lap dash, and this is on cold tyres or colder tyres after code 60. And Kubica's in the pit lane. Renault, third in the timing screen, is in the pit lane. Stuart Hall, we know all about the Ram Racing Mercedes. That's not going to continue in this session. May not even be in the race. Christian Engelhardt is still out on track there in the 963 Lamborghini GRT Grasser car. So we're looking at that machine to potentially better the 148.2. Rory Butcher heading out now. He's not going to make it round, I don't think.
I'm surprised because we saw Rory Butcher get out of that car. We saw Butcher get out of the car, took his helmet off. In the time that it's taken us to implement that code 60, has he then got his helmet back on, thinking that that pole position was at risk?
Bear in mind the name on the timing screen that we have in the booth there is reliant on the drivers clicking their ID round to the right location. there'll be 2, 3, 4 or 5 settings in that car, and you're each given a number effectively as one of the drivers in the lineup, and Christian Engelhardt, for example, stepping on board, will be told to switch it to setting 2, and that tells us that it's Engelhardt in the car. But sometimes you can forget to do that. And we might have a new driver on board the number 32 Ferrari. Then again, it might be Rory Butcher who's got back on board, having been thinking that his job was done in qualifying.
Well, Johnny, we were in car for a moment there with the number 963 GRT Grasser Lamborghini, who is currently in 5th. Their quickest time up to now, a 1:49.4. We'll stay with this car as it continues on what will be its final qualifying lap. It's the beautifully liveried green Lamborghini Huracan. Engelhardt is at the wheel of that car, and he is definitely on it. It's Christian Engelhardt, the German driver, who continues on his way. We'll keep an eye on that car as he comes across the line and keep one eye on the timing screens. The number 10 Hofer Racing Mercedes has taken the checkered flag. It's currently in 5th place. No change at the front of the field. Johnny, still Rory Butcher, our provisional pole position, who is in the pits now. So the only car that I can see that has got any chance of making a difference has now been bogged as he came out of the final turn. I don't know if he got held up at all there, but as Engelhardt
benefited from the draft actually.
Slight bit as he crosses the line, and he does indeed go to pole position. So that lap that we covered there on our TV screens, the green Lamborghini of the GRT Grasser team, Christian Engelhardt there at the very final roll of the dice, puts in a 1:47.909, 0.351 of a second, nearly 4/10 of a second quicker than the Rory Butcher Ferrari. So early celebrations in the MJC team not becoming reality there, and that was an outstanding lap. And considering, Johnny, that I think his exit was a little bit compromised. He may not think it, but I'm sure he kept his foot in. But he wasn't able to allow the car to breathe coming out of that corner, because that Porsche in front of him was about to peel off right into the pit lane and was probably backing off. So he had to jink to the left. That's going to cause, he could have even been quicker. But that, you know what? He doesn't need to be, because that's quick enough.
All I can say is I'm glad I'm not in charge down at GRT Grasser Racing, because I would have called that and said, we ain't going to have enough time here to do a quick lap.
Yeah.
And all they needed to do, as Nick quite rightly pointed out, was be in the right position on the track to start their final lap and their pole lap before the checkered flag came out. They managed to do that by probably only about 30 seconds, and a 1:47.909, the only car that managed to break the 1:48 second margin, gets pole position for GRT Grasser Racing. It's a pole for Lamborghini. Rory Butcher said that he thought the time would be good enough for the front row. It certainly was. The Ferrari of MJC Furlonger will join the Lamborghini then on the front row, and those two cars separated by 0.35 of a second. Robert Kubica, who was at the top of the pile there for much of that session, Robert Kubica for MP Sports in their Mercedes, actually going to start the race a bit later on today from 3rd position. Renault in the 911 Herberth Porsche will start from 4th. Who knows about the Ram Racing Mercedes? If they can get that problem fixed, it will start in 5th position. And in 6th place, the number 10 Hofer Racing Mercedes. Remember, it's the title defending number 10 Mercedes that will start from 6th position. A fantastic qualifying session here in Mugello. For now, it's goodbye.